Conflict, in its simplest physical form, lies in the center of storytelling for practically as long as humanity learned that adding a rock to a forehead gives us a corpse. Not surprisingly, all shapes and colors of good old Pierdol continue to inspire our entertainment. Narration and encounter design in many games boils down to pointing at Big Ugly and proclaiming that Piñata Party is on. And even that often isn't necessary, as existence of two separate versus modes prove undoubtedly that Guild Wars 2 players don't need an excuse to throw hands. In this peaceful and welcoming environment, it is nowhere near unexpected that a class thematically wrapped around providing involuntary free dental service has a line of utility skills dedicated specifically to the subject matter. Warrior's physical skills are, like the name suggests, deeply rooted in Newton's laws of dynamics, mainly the part where force is applied to the object. In that vein of relevance, Kick does what's needed to fulfill players' expectations exactly to the T, and nothing more. Except for occasional Sparta jokes, Kick rarely finds use across the community, and upon closer inspection, it eventually becomes painfully obvious why that's the case. Kick is a short distance, heels forward lunge with ammunition to keep the illusion of being worth a utility slot. Don't get me wrong, CC is always a CC and gap closer is always a gap closer, especially when half of Warrior's traits synergize with one of these or not at all. Further than that, knockback in Guild Wars 2 is more than just displacement. Getting displaced in any way forces displaced entity into short getting your ass off the ground animation, which the game recognizes as disabled state. This leads to non-interaction of Warrior being able to land fist blow after staggering blow in time to qualify for empowered hit. Not many people know though that Kick allows for the same interaction. Kick can be used to set up pretty much every skill that requires control target for its full potential, and to activate every trait that gives you sweet something for disabling an enemy. Why therefore isn't it utilized more than for the sheer purpose of making this video? To portray the problem, we'll compare Kick with Aura Slicer, due to both being short dashes with range of 300. Kick's range, however, is this kind of 300 you'd get if Leonidas allowed working from home, because about half of it is hydrated one knows where, pondering the beauty of the universe or some shit. In short, Kick moves you and connects from roughly half of the distance Aura Slicer does. And Aura Slicer is already headbutting the bottom of the barrel when it comes to traversal. Kick, with its ammunition, could be good skill, if its range and travel distance were indeed as tooltip states. Unfortunately, they aren't. But hey, no one expected Rush to get fixed. Kick might eventually get fixed as well. Second physical skill seemingly left wanting is Throw Bolas, and that skill is mostly underutilized because main warrior player base shows a refrain from playing Condi-related builds. Throw Bolas, or balls if you're brave enough, is a consistent way to apply hefty 4-second immobilize from 1200 range, making it very efficient at catching people normally far outside of Warrior's typical threat distance. That can be capitalized on either by support players looking to feed their DPS a healthy diet of immobile vulnerable targets, or Condi enjoyers in combination with the juicy Impale Torment. Further than that, Throw Balls synergizes with Longbow, as you can extend Pin Down Immobilize with balls or the other way around. Not to mention, keeping enemy in place reduces their ability to reach the fire exit in case of combustive shot shenanigans. In simpler terms, 4 seconds of Immobilize is a lot, and that lot can be chained into more CC or capitalized on for big damage payoff. Not to mention, with correct setup, even in PvP, Warrior can reach 25% condition duration increase, increasing his immobilized duration from pin down and balls to 5 seconds each, 15 in total. Throw Balls has 16 seconds of recharge. You can chain immobilize someone with balls, pin down and flurry for over 30 seconds, all the while melting them down with damage. From this point onward, we leave the realm of underappreciated physical skills, as next in line is Balls Charge. If anyone tries to tell you that Balls Charge is a bad skill, you know they've been to Gyala without Rebreather or just have some pain they couldn't handle. Boss Charge is a 900 range dash with evade window throughout its animation and 3 seconds of knockdown applied on hit. It is a solid contender for the strongest single utility skill Warrior has access to, as it provides defense in form of evasion, mobility and strong CC, all while having good tracking, being fast in general, as well as having ability to curve around terrain. All that on one button, with reasonable cooldown, is the single most effective knuckle sandwich delivery system a warrior could ask for, because it takes you from point A to point B safe from 90% of threats, and if used correctly, forces out a dodge or a stun break. Not to mention, often being available twice in a prolonged engagement. Riding off of that good note, let's talk about Stomp. Only stun break in Warrior's physical skills arsenal, and his only skill that launches. Stomp is one of Warrior's excellent reversal tools, allowing not just to recover from CC, but also to send whoever pressures you into involuntary one-way trip too far away via Pierdol R lines. Not to mention, it moves you further than Aura Slicer and Kick combined. All reversal tools, that's mostly stun breaks, with few exceptions depending on how we define a reversal tool, are incredibly valuable, especially since EOD when Hammer Warrior breached containment and sipped into another class. But I digress. Talking about physical skills quickly becomes repetitive, as half of them does roughly the same thing, some movement plus CC, just with slightly different spin on it. And if skills don't have glaring flaws like Kick does, there's nothing worth mentioning in such scenario. Both Charge and Stomp fall directly into this category. They are just really good, but really straightforward skills. And so is Mending. Mending is a physical healing skill, removing conditions and restoring health upon finishing the custom. The way Warrior closes his wounds and stops bleeding, poison and shed is the same, completely not magical effect we used to heal people by yelling at them and waving a stick. It's a game mechanic. You aren't supposed to spawn a whole subgenre of comedy entirely based on beating a dead horse. It's a game mechanic. And also, functions in the game is the furthest extent to which it can be discussed or described without going into extremely debatable territory. A healing skill with solid cleanse on top is nothing to scoff at, but nothing worth writing home about either. Anyhow, an ability with much more ground to discuss is Rampage. You channel the power of legendary alcoholic father to unlock the way of domestic abuse, to beat the shit out of every smaller than you, sober life form standing in your way to the fridge. Or at least that's what Rampage is in spirit. In game mechanics, you gain stability, swiftness and take reduced damage, while also reducing all incoming movement impairments by a third of their duration. Other than that, you get your skill bar replaced by bootleg of every other physical as your new weapon skills. Skill 2 is Kick, Skill 3 is Boost Charge but with damage instead of CC, Skill 4 is Throw Balls but with stun instead of Immobilize, and Skill 5 is Stomp but with Knockdown instead of Launch. Only Auto Chain is original, but that's also the Auto Chain, so only exciting thing about it is the days on third hit. Going full WWE on some unfortunate losers is certainly fun, though you aren't guaranteed to have your way in life. Rampage leaves you with no access to your utility bar, which means you can't cleanse or stun break yourself if need arises. And therefore, Boon removal into CC, or even worse, Boon Corrupt, can really mess up your day. Not to mention, condition damage can still melt your health bar. On one hand, I understand, we don't want the bloody thing to become too oppressive. On the other hand, does an elite skill with a minute and a half of cooldown really need a noticeable drawback? Your guess is as good as mine. In summary, physical skills are unnoticeably focused on a niche that is mobility and crowd control, as with one exception, all of them technically do one or both. Also, with exception of one different skill, they are all good at their job, and are commonly utilized amongst all popular warrior builds. Physical skills are literally one change away from becoming flawless, and a few touch-ups to underappreciated builds from becoming most commonly used skill line across Warrior's arsenal. And sure, there's not much damage mitigation, nor much shared utility, nor damage, nor whatever amongst them, but what's good as a utility skill is different from what's good as a weapon skill, just like what's good as a pet is different from what's good as a source of protein. Weapon skills have to form a coherent package that is more than just some of its parts, because, unless you're a ranger's hammer, you don't really get to change one of those paths. Utilities, however, are the paths themselves, that can be slotted in and out of the builds with no drawback whatsoever, which means that specialized skill is usually more valuable than all-rounder, because I can pick and choose a different specialist in every field my build lacks, instead of getting them in predetermined packages. Henceforth, skills trying their hardest to fill their niche and sticking to it is a dream come true scenario, especially when said niche is as broadly applicable as the gentle art of putting people to sleep against their will. Crapface out.